not engagement. Emotional management becomes difficult. That's if you choose to stay in the relationship. Now, I'll tell you this. I'm one who was practicing the virtues of the Stoic. And so you do daily meditations of your wisdom, moderation, courage, and justice. All right. Now, I add patience to it, and I had to have plenty of it because I was not getting anything in return. And I said to myself, what in the hell am I doing wrong here? Like, right, you start to question yourself. And so that's very important. You impulsively react. And so your intuition screaming at you at some point. So if, for example, the person was very flirtatious with a person that she had only met once, and it was the opposite sex, and they didn't even acknowledge my presence. And I'm like, okay, I'm here. I'm in your back pocket. You were just cold and distant with me for the entire trip here for an hour and a half in a car. And yet you're very flirtatious and open with this person, and then you don't introduce me. I'm not even here. And it was like that the entire time we were at this event. And so months later, this person goes to some kind of a Christmas party, and I had the feeling that this person's name would get brought up. And it was my intuition that told me that, because this person had talked about this person as if they had known them their entire life. They're sitting there communicating and flirting with them like they've known them their entire life. And meanwhile, she's cold and distant with me the entire time. Anyway, I digress. So when this person came up and it was gossip about this guy's marriage, I had already had like an intuitive thought that I would hear about this person on this day. And I did. And I basically hung the phone. I hung the phone up. I hung up on the person. And I said, look, we've talked about this and this is enough. All right. I don't mean to get into too many details, but it did not go well for me because I impulsively reacted emotionally. I found myself like holding on to my virtues more tightly. Like I was really deep into my meditations from that point forward because things were not adding up. This person seemed to be maintaining an image to everyone else, and it was really difficult. Like for me, it was exhausting to even watch now that I think about it, and also to experience where you're laying next to the person. You wake up in bed with them, you go to bed with them at night, you might as well be 1,000 miles away. And then the next day they maintain an image by like being warm and fuzzy and cozy and loving and smiling and everything else. And it's just really strange to me how that works, and exhausting. And we could even talk about the nervous system responses that happen with the body when a person doesn't express themselves, and you end up with eczema, you end up with POTS, you end up with other conditions that happen because of your nervous system. Now, we could talk about that another time, but essentially your emotional management becomes difficult. Now, a person like me, I was experienced with the Stoic meditations, affirmations. I'm that type of person that had those tools already to be able to ground myself despite the fact that I was experiencing the emotional neglect that I was, right? And then, even at the end where I'm realizing that the person is avoiding emotional responsibility, and the joke's on me because she's got an entire stack of books, or like a bookshelves filled with fantasy, romance, smut, which directly relates to these relationship dynamics and how a person can escape into those books. Those books are terribly detrimental for those out there who know people who read the books. I know that it's a controversial topic. God bless you. Human beings have their own hobbies and things like that. There's a lot more to those books than that's detrimental to society than we give it credit for. Okay, they're entertaining as the books may be. So anyway, she was escaping into these books and finding emotional intimacy and romantic intimacy and fulfilling her climactic sexual fantasies through the books. In the meanwhile, she's completely cold and distant with you. This could be a he or a she. I mean, primarily women read those books, right? And so from what I understand anyway. And so when I read one of the books, all right, and it was so alarming to me, and that's when everything hit. It was one of the books, I won't say which one it was, a very popular book And that's when everything came crashing to reality, and I realized what I had gotten myself into and what I had been digging myself into. All right, into a hole, basically her hole. All right, conforming to her frame, lowering my vibrations and my aspirations of what I wanted to do in my life and what I was going to have to conform to in order to be with that person. And that was not happening. Right. And so you set boundaries. Now, my boundaries were late in the game and they were radical. I couldn't have those things in my life that undermined my integrity, my values, and the work that I had put in, the energy that I had put in. And so that's pretty much what I was detaching from. That's when I had written this content. I created a journal and I would write about it and create some scripts over it. And then here we are talking about it on video. But that's essentially what my mindset was. I was in the middle of detaching emotionally from what had happened and her memories. All right. So you can't get rid of the memories. You're going to think about the person. You can't just maybe fall out of love. Perhaps, I don't know. It's to each their own. But you can't just stop loving the person. And when you understand what's going on in their mind and perhaps what their nuances were in their childhood that led to this behavioral loop and pattern, you have to have empathy for it. And, you want to hate the person, you want to be angry, you want to be upset. But this is a great opportunity for you to go through some introspection and reflection and take a look in the mirror and reflect on the relationship and see why it was that you had your blind spots, or when you had your blind spots, why you chose certain things and made certain decisions, and then improve upon those. Because oftentimes, in my case, this has been one of the most enlightening moments of my life, if not the most. It compares equally to when I opened my eyes to the central banking system, Federal Reserve, and fractional reserve lending, and you realize that the whole matrix or world you're living in is actually like a big facade. It's just a big illusion, and that you realize that there's more to life than what meets the eye here in the world. And everybody knows this at this point. Like, if you take a look out there, the world's crazy. These relationship dynamics are crazy. And so this equates on that level to where you have these mass epiphanies about who you are, and that all of the fears that you thought that you had solved and conquered or you're aware of, you actually haven't. You've kind of fallen off from them, or there were nuances to them that you had not discovered yet. And that's where I come from, and this is why I try to talk about these things here. I was very hesitant to actually post any of this content because it's not in my interest to necessarily kiss and tell out of respect for the other party, because I love that person. I always will. That won't change. But I have effectively gotten to the point where this is 2 months in here. I've effectively gotten to the point where it does not emotionally bother me to even have a thought about that person, and the thoughts are few and far between. And I have gotten to the point where I'm nearly indifferent, which is strange. It's comfortable. It's normal. You don't have to pin your identity to your attachment to that person or anything. Once you learn to detach from this person, you learn the importance of being able to detach your emotions from tangible things like a person or an experience like that relationship. Not to say you can't love. I'm a loving person. I'm full of love and vibrance. That's what I choose to live in. That's what I chose over that person. Otherwise, I would not have been able to live in the vibrance of love. I chose that over the abuse, what you would call abuse, call it whatever you want, the treatment of the avoidant person and the life that would have entailed, right? And so that's what this is all about, where you're able to identify the things in your life that you could do better to move forward and elevate yourself. And doing so, hey, you see what it was you weren't willing to give up, and now you go apply those things. You saw the fears that put you in that position to begin with, and that person reflected your fears right back to you. And then you had to deal with some pain and agony, but it is that pain and agony, that pressure, that experience or time that creates that diamond. And this is what I talk about all the time with this stuff. Anything that you go through in your life, you're going to want to, you're probably over explaining yourself. And so you're going to want to learn how to be and sit in silence before speaking in chaos. Stability in chaos is comfortable to people. It provides security to yourself and to others around you. And knowing that they can entrust you with their security. And this is for future relationships when one can maintain their composure. But you must set boundaries in a healthy way to be able to effectively communicate these things. Otherwise, you end up in an emotionally unstable environment within yourself. All right, you lose that sense of finding equilibrium. All right, you become more bipolar, like where we try to be happy or too sad. There's no moderation, virtue of the Stoic. All right, so there's that one. It was long-winded. Hopefully you guys stuck in there. It's 22 minutes long here, but we'll end it there. And hopefully you've taken some good information. This is your opportunity. Sit and be upset, be hurt, lose sleep, be in pain. That's okay. You're compressing, you're focusing on something that requires attention because you are confused. There has been no closure, and that's okay. You're not alone. People go through it all the time. Maybe not this extent, like the emotional execution, but here we are today, and it's a part of what you will become in the future because it's here. All right, if you're watching this content, you've gone through it or are going through it. Some people are able to detach and move forward, carrying this experience with them to bigger and brighter things, whatever that may be. All right, so peace.